Hello and welcome to this lecture on electric dipole radiation. This lecture is a part of module 5 of your course in electrodynamics. In this lecture I shall carry the discussion forward from an earlier lecture on fields due to an accelerated charge. Over there I had briefly touched upon the notion of radiation, the radiation field, which is a consequence of the acceleration of a charged particle. So here first we will we will start with the concept of retarded potentials and then take it forward to arrive at Jeffy-Menko's equations. Of course I'll not be doing the explicitly, I'll not be doing the derivation for this. Then I'll introduce the idea of what dipole radiation is, and using this idea then what we'll do is we'll use the retarded potentials to find out the potential due to an oscillating electric dipole. And once we get the potentials, that is the scalar and the vector potentials, we can then proceed to find out the fields due to that oscillating electric dipole. And finally, we having obtained the fields, we can then find out the electric dipole radiation. So just to recap, these are the fields due to an accelerated point charge, and you can see here that the electric field, of course, if you know the electric field, that is sufficient, because the magnetic field can be obtained from the electric field itself. Here capital R is the separation vector. The vector R is a separation vector between the source point and the field point. You can notice here that the electric field, it has got two terms. There are two terms. So one term depends only on the velocity, the other term depends on velocity as well as the acceleration. The first term, it varies as 1 by r, and the first term varies as 1 by r square, and the second term varies as 1 by r. How it happens? So for that you can just refer to my lecture on accelerated charges. And this first term is known as a generalized Coulomb field, because it comes down to the Coulomb field when v equal to 0 and a equal to 0, that is when the charges are static. And the second term, it varies as 1 by r. It is known as acceleration field or radiation field, because when we look at a long range radiation due to, that is the electromagnetic wave which are propagated to a long range, that is when capital R becomes extremely large, then not this term but this is the term that is going to survive. So what we need to keep in mind is any term which varies as 1 by r, that is what is going to survive. So any term which is 1 by r square, that is going to be discarded. Of course I'll be outlining this in the form of an explicit approximation. So any term which varies as 1 by r square will be neglected, and any term which varies as 1 by r, that is what is going to survive at extremely long ranges, and that is going to give us our radiation field. So these are the retarded potentials. So before we go to dipole radiation, I'll just quickly introduce you to the Jeffy-Menko's equations. So using the concept of retarded potentials, so what it basically says that the potentials, that is the scalar and the vector potentials at a point, at any point of time, that is t is the present time, it is not due to the configuration of the charges or the currents at the present time. The potentials at a point r at the present time is due to the charge and the current configuration at some earlier time. That earlier time is the retarded time tr that we have written over here. So these are the retarded potentials. In our earlier discussion, what I had done was I assumed that a charged particle was moving in a certain trajectory, and then found out what are the fields the potentials due to that. So that gave us the Liénard-Wiechert potentials. But here we will find a general expression for this. The expression is, can we find out the fields directly from here? And the answer is, of course, yes. The electric field, of course, can be found as the negative gradient of phi minus the time rate of change of A, and magnetic field is basically simply the curl of A. And we can evaluate each of these terms, gradient of phi and dou A by dou T from here, and curl of A also we can find out. We can evaluate each of these terms, and of course I'm not going to do this part, the evaluation of these terms, because it's not there in your syllabus, but if you're interested, you could go through section 10.2 in Griffith's 4th edition. I've just picked up the results from there. And using this, we get the magnetic field to be this, and the electric field to be this. So these are basically your Jeffy-Menko's equations. So Jeffy-Menko's equations, to put it simply, Jeffy-Menko's equations give us the fields starting from the retarded potentials. By using these formulas, it will give us the electric and the magnetic fields. Now coming to dipole radiation. Okay, so let's define what a radiation is. Radiation is simply an irreversible transport of energy out to infinity by fields due to the acceleration of charges. So we have charges which are accelerated, okay, and these accelerated charges, because of this accelerated charges, we'll have electromagnetic waves which will be generated, and these electromagnetic waves will carry out energy in an irreversible way. That means you cannot get this back. Okay, so that is known as radiation, and this is out to infinity. So when we talk about radiation, we are always looking, we are always, it's important that we are very far away from the source, or maybe if you can consider the source to be extremely small. Okay, so that's what we are talking about here. So now static charges and steady currents, they give us an electromagnetic field, which we already know. But accelerated charges and changing currents, they give us not an electromagnetic field, they give us an electromagnetic radiation field. So let's say I have a source, okay, which is localized somewhere near the origin. So we have a source which is localized somewhere over here, and this source is giving rise to electromagnetic waves, and these are carrying energy out. And because energy is being carried out, then we could think of electromagnetic power which is being carried by these electromagnetic waves. So if we measure the electromagnetic power that crosses any surface, that will be simply equal to the flux of the Poynting vector. Okay, you can see here, this is basically the expression for flux, right? So over here we are using the Poynting vector as the vector whose area integral is being calculated. So this is the flux of the Poynting vector. So flux of the Poynting vector is basically the electromagnetic power which is crossing the surface. And of course, since the Poynting vector is time dependent, so this power also is going to be time dependent. So radiated power is at large distances, that is when r goes tends towards infinity. Okay, when r tends towards infinity, then the source which is at a retarded time, the power that is radiated by the source at retarded time as r tends towards infinity, that is known as the radiated power. Okay, so when we say source, we could be talking about an electric dipole, we could be talking about a magnetic dipole, or you could talk about any arbitrary sources, any arbitrary collection of sources. In this lecture, we will be focusing mainly on electric dipole radiation. So when it goes towards infinity, as r goes towards infinity, now you can actually appreciate what I had said in this slide, right? I had said that when we talk about radiation, it's only the acceleration dependent term that is important, because this term is it varies as 1 by r, right? In this term, if you see, there are two terms. This varies as 1 by r square, this varies as 1 by r. So E is dependent on two terms. One term varies as 1 by r square, other term varies as 1 by r, right? So when we find out the Poynting vector, so it is E cross B. So the term which varies as 1 by r, that means correspondingly the B, there is going to be a term which varies as 1 by r. That 1 by r and 1 by r, because we are taking a cross product, 1 by r, it will give us 1 by r square term. And dA, this is area goes as r square, so 1 by r square into r square, so r square will get cancelled. So overall this is going to give us a constant result. So the radiation will not die down, it will be a constant value. But if we consider the term where E is the term which varies as 1 by r square, so 1 by r square term here, 1 by r square term here, that 1 by r square will give us 1 by r to the power 4 times r square, right? 1 by r to the power 4 into r square, it will give us 1 by r square. So as r tends to infinity, that term is going to become 0. So it is only that 1 by r term that is going to survive at very large distances. So in dipole radiation, this is what we are interested in. So keeping this in mind, we'll move forward. We will now consider the potentials due to an oscillating electric dipole. So this is what we'll do. We will consider an electric dipole and we will make the charges oscillate. Okay, and in that configuration we'll first find out the potentials, and having found out the potentials, then we'll just use E equal to minus grad phi minus dou A by dou T, and B equal to curl of A to find out the fields. And once we get the electric and magnetic fields, then we can find out the Poynting vector. Okay, we can find out the Poynting vector, and from there onwards we can find out what is the power that is radiated, that is going to give us the dipole radiation. So we consider two tiny metallic spheres. Okay, so we have two tiny metallic spheres which are separated by a distance d. One sphere, if it has got a charge q, the other sphere will be maintained at a charge of minus q. Okay, so now they are connected by filamentary wire. Okay, now what's a filamentary wire? Filamentary wire is an ideal wire which has a very low resistance, negligible resistance, and whose area of cross section is also negligible. So something like you could think of a strand in a spider web. Okay, so if you have a spider web and then you take a strand of that and you imagine that strand to be conducting, so that is how a filamentary wire is going to look like. So we have a filamentary wire which is connecting these two metallic spheres, and let's say I'm able to induce some positive charge in this sphere, then corresponding we'll have a negative charge, same amount of negative charge which will be induced over here. So as a result we'll get a dipole. So just so as to distinguish between them, I have given positive charge as blue color and negative charge as red color. So at time t, let's say on the upper sphere the charge is plus q, and then on the lower sphere the charge will be minus q. Now let's say by some means we are able to drive the charge back and forth. Okay, we are able to drive the charge back and forth. So I could have maybe another object here whose charge I can hook up to another external circuit that is going to keep on changing the charge on this and on this sphere, which is going to induce some amount of charge. So if I change the charge on this other sphere harmonically, then this will also change, and accordingly this will also change. Okay, so we can obtain an oscillating electric dipole in this way. So that means we can, if it is harmonic oscillation, that means we can say that the charge on this is changing as q naught cos of omega t. Of course, another way to do that would be, we have these two charged particles and then we could just connect them by a spring. Okay, the filamentary wire itself, let's say it's a spring, and then we give a small perturbation and it's going to oscillate. But then the result will be same in both the cases. But if you use a spring and sphere method, the problem would be that in that case we also have to take into account the motion of the charged particles. Okay, so this is equivalent, this problem is equivalent to that. So we will take the easy way out. We will assume that the charge is being driven between these two metallic spheres harmonically at a frequency omega. So frequency omega is the frequency at which we are driving the charge between these two spheres. So moment we have a changing charge, okay, on the positive and on these two spheres, then accordingly we will have a changing dipole moment. The dipole moment is also going to oscillate. So dipole moment is simply charge into the separation between them. The charge is qt, the separation is d, and if this is the z direction, so k cap is the direction of the dipole. Okay, so the dipole sometimes it will be pointing in the upward direction, other times it will be pointing in the downward direction. Okay, for half cycle it will be in the upward direction, the other half cycle it will be in the downward direction, and is going to oscillate back and forth. So we have a oscillating dipole moment. We have generated an oscillating dipole moment in this way. Okay, so this is the resulting oscillating dipole moment. So q of t into d, q of t is q naught cos omega t, and q naught into d, we'll write it as p naught. That's the maximum dipole moment that you can have in this case. Okay, so p naught cos omega t into k, where p naught is q naught into d. So then the retarded scalar potential, what will be the retarded scalar potential at this point p? Okay, now let's say from the center, okay, from the center the distance to this point p is r. So r is the field point, okay, and this field point is making a polar angle theta with respect to the z-axis. Okay, so moment we have r and theta, that means you are talking about spherical polar coordinates. Now this point p, its separation from the red sphere is r plus, and its separation from blue sphere, its separation from the blue sphere is r plus, and its separation from the red sphere is r minus. So what will be the scalar potential here? Now it's very straightforward, because we know how to find out the potential at a point due to a discrete charge distribution. So plus q minus q, so it will be simply k q1 by r1 plus k q2 by r2. So k q, okay, q is equal to q naught cos omega. Now instead of t we have to use the retarded time, so t minus r plus by c divided by the distance, which is r plus, and in this case it will be q naught, okay, because minus q, the negative charge, so minus q naught cos omega into retarded time divided by r minus. So this is going to be the retarded scalar potential. We call this equation number 1. So this is a retarded scalar potential. Now we'll have to simplify this. Of course, what is this r plus and r minus? R plus and r minus, we can just use the law of vector addition to find out this. Okay, I'll leave it to you to verify. Okay, this r plus will be, if you imagine a vector here and if you imagine another vector here, okay, this vector's magnitude is d by 2 and this vector's magnitude is small r, then we can find out what is the magnitude of this vector. So that will be r plus. Okay, so r plus will be equal to under root r square plus d by 2 whole square minus rd cos theta, and r minus will be r square plus d by 2 whole square plus rd cos theta. So now to simplify the problem, we will be using three approximations, because we want to turn this physical dipole, this is a physical dipole, we want to turn this into a perfect dipole. If you remember, because we are interested in the dipole radiation. Dipole radiation means we are very far away from the oscillating dipole. It means the size of the dipole becomes immaterial, it becomes irrelevant to us. All that matters is the dipole moment which is generated. Okay, so that is what a perfect dipole. A perfect dipole is a dipole which has got a dipole moment at a certain point. Okay, but here when you take a physical dipole, you don't define physical dipole using a single point. You have 2 points, one for the positive charge, one for the negative charge. So we want to turn this physical dipole into a perfect dipole, and to do that we make three approximations. The first approximation is, we assume that the size of the dipole is extremely small compared to the field positions. That is, this separation is very small compared to the distance r. Okay, then the second approximation is, the size of the dipole is extremely small compared to the wavelength of the radiation. Okay, so we have some electromagnetic radiation that will have a wavelength lambda. Size of the dipole is very small compared to the wavelength as well. And the third approximation is, this is of course we are talking about the radiation zone. That means the fields that survive at large distances from the source, that is r is extremely large. So we can write down these approximations mathematically as, in the first case d is very very small compared to r, second case d is very very small compared to lambda. Okay, now lambda is equal to c by nu, right, c by nu, and nu is equal to omega by 2 pi, right. So we can as well write that d is, if d is less than c by nu, then d will also be very very small compared to c by omega. Just a factor of 2 pi comes, so we can neglect that. It will be less than, much less than c by omega as well. Okay, so that's the second approximation. And the third approximation is, r is very large compared to the wavelength. Okay, now when I say c by omega, you should just think of wavelength, that we are talking, this is basically the wavelength. So the distance at which we are measuring the radiation, that distance is very large compared to the wavelength of the electromagnetic radiation. So this is the separation distance. Okay, r plus minus. When I write something like this, it means when I have r plus minus and here I have minus plus, that means this first one, of course it will be always plus. When I say suppose I take r plus, that means this r plus will be coupled with this minus sign here. So r plus will be equal to under root r square plus d by 2 whole square minus rd cos theta, and if you take the lower sign, that will be always coupled with this lower sign. So r minus is equal to under root r square plus d by 2 whole square plus rd cos theta. Okay, I'll leave it to you to verify that this is what it will be. It's just elementary vector algebra. Okay, so let's apply the first approximation. The first approximation is that d is very very small compared to r. If d is very very small compared to r, that means d square by 2 is going to be extremely negligible, so we can neglect this term. Okay, so as a result, r plus or minus will be approximately equal to under root r square minus plus rd cos theta, where we have neglected this term. If I take r square common here, r square common, then the first we'll get 1 here, and here we'll get a d by r. Okay, and that r square we can always take it outside, so we'll get a r here. Moment I take it outside the root, we'll simply get r. So r into 1 minus plus, we have a d by r cos theta to the power half. Now this is extremely small because of the first approximation. This term is extremely small, so we can apply the binomial approximation here, and we can say that r plus or minus is approximately equal to r into, okay, binomial approximation is 1 plus or minus n, 1 plus or minus x to the power n is equal to 1 plus or minus n x, approximately equal to 1 plus or minus n x. Okay, so we apply the binomial approximation, so we have 1 r into 1 minus plus d by twice r into cos theta. Let's call this equation number 3. Also, what about the reciprocal of r? Because we need the reciprocal, right? Because in the denominator, in the here we need the reciprocal, 1 by r plus 1 by r minus. So we got what is r plus or minus. So what about the reciprocal, 1 by r plus or minus? 1 by r plus or minus will be, we can just take this, right? We can take the reciprocal as 1 by r plus or minus is equal to 1 by r, approximately equal to 1 by r. Okay, applying the first approximation, 1 minus plus d by r cos theta whole to the power, instead of plus half we'll get a minus half here. Now again I can apply the binomial approximation here, and applying the binomial approximation, we put this term will get multiplied with minus half. Moment it gets multiplied with minus half, this minus, okay, for the upper sign, minus and minus, it will give us a plus, plus and minus will give us a minus. So this minus plus, it will get swapped and it will become plus minus. Okay, so minus plus is going to become plus. Now the upper sign, so here 1 by r plus is approximately equal to 1 by r, 1 plus d by twice r cos theta, and the same thing for r 1 by r minus. So let's call this equation number 4. So equation number 3 is this. Okay, so now we are in a position to evaluate this quantity which is there in here. Okay, so we need cos, right, omega t minus r plus by c, cos omega t minus r minus by c. So we can evaluate this. So we can evaluate this as 1 by r plus or minus. So we can evaluate this now. Okay, so having got this r plus or minus, we can just evaluate this. So all you have to do is just substitute. Okay, r plus minus, you just substitute this entire thing, we substitute over here. So cos of omega t minus r plus minus by c is approximately equal to cos of omega t. Okay, I'm opening this, omega t minus omega, we'll get a r, right? This r will come here, r divided by c, there is a c here, omega r by c, times 1 minus plus d by twice r into cos theta. This is what we will get. Now we can open this up. So we have minus omega r by c into 1, and minus plus, when you multiply this minus plus sign with minus, you'll get this signs will flip, and we'll get minus plus will become plus minus. So you'll get plus minus omega, this omega will be there, omega into d, this r and this r will get cancelled, divided by omega d by twice c into cos theta. This is what we have here. I can take this omega common now, omega into t minus r by c plus or minus omega d by twice c into cos theta. Now this is nothing but cos of a plus b, right? A plus b or a minus b. So we know that cos of a plus b is equal to cos a cos b minus sin a sin b, and cos of a minus b is equal to cos a cos b plus sin a sin b. That means if there is a plus sign, this will give us two terms. If there is a plus sign, okay, this will give us first two terms will be product of cos, and the second term will be the product of sine, and in between the sign will be opposite of whatever is the sign, right? Whatever we are having in between a and b. So if it is plus, we'll get a minus here. If it is minus, we'll get a plus here. So this is basic trigonometric identity here. So cos a plus or minus b formula I have just applied, and we got this. So first product of cos terms, and second one is the product of sine terms. So this is what we got in equation number 5. So equation number 5, we get this. So we have evaluated the cos of omega at retarded time. Then we can now apply the second approximation. The second approximation is d is very small compared to c by omega. If d is very small compared to c by omega, that means omega into d by c, omega into d by c will be much less compared to 1, right? Because I mean I multiply this throughout this inequation, I multiply this throughout by omega by c, so omega d by c will be very small compared to 1, which means omega d by c is going to tend towards 0. So when this tends towards 0, then you can see here omega d by c, it appears in the phase of this cos term and this sine term. That means you are talking about extremely small angle here and an extremely small angle here, so we can just apply the small angle approximation, right? As per small angle approximation, if some angle psi is extremely small, that it tends towards 0, then cos of that angle will tend towards 1 and the sine of that angle will tend towards that angle itself, right? So this, because of this approximation, this phase is going to tend towards 0, and this also is going to tend towards 0. So as a result, this cos term will be approximately equal to 1, and this sine term will be approximately equal to whatever is the phase here. Okay, so cos of this term will be approximately equal to 1, and sine of this will be approximately equal to whatever is the argument of sine. So we just substitute this back here. So equation number 5 becomes, so cos of this one, okay, so this is 1 minus plus sine of this, and of course this is going to come outside because sine of this is equal to omega d by twice c into cos theta sine omega t minus r by c. So this is we call this as equation number 6. So there we have it. So we have obtained the cos terms and we have the reciprocal of r terms. Okay, so 1 by r plus or minus is approximately equal to 1 by r 1 plus or minus d by twice r cos theta. Similarly, cos of this is equal to this. So just for the sake of clarity, I'll just write this down here. R plus is here, so plus or minus, so what will be r plus this plus will get coupled with the upper term, so we'll get a plus sign here. We're taking plus here, so we'll have a plus here also, so plus and plus. Similarly, minus and minus, minus and minus here. Similarly here also, if you take a plus sign, what will happen? So when I take a plus sign here, we'll get a minus sign here. When we take the minus sign here, we'll get a plus sign here. Okay, so just for the sake of completion, I have written this down over here. So this is what we have. So the retarded scalar potential is basically this. We'll now just substitute all of this over here. So before we substitute, so that we can do it in a systematic manner, so what we do is we'll just look at the constants here. Okay, so we have cos, that will be of course replaced with this. There is a q naught and there's a q naught here, which is of course constant, so q naught and q naught will come outside because it's common to both the terms. And this r plus, 1 by r plus has got a 1 by r, and 1 by r minus also has got a 1 by r. So q naught by r, I can take it outside. So q naught by 4 pi epsilon naught r, I could take it outside. Okay, q naught by 4 pi epsilon naught r. Then what is left behind is cos of this and minus cos of this. So then I can just substitute into 1 by whatever is left for 1 by r plus and 1 by r minus. Okay, so cos of omega t minus r plus by c, this multiplied with this quantity inside the brackets. Similarly, minus this entire term multiplied with this term inside the bracket. Okay, so this is what we have. Okay, so this first term into this, that is this term into this, and here we will have this term into this term into this. This is what we have. Okay, now it looks like it looks very intimidating here, but trust me, if you are patient with this, we'll get a very simple and very elegant solution at the end. Okay, so now what is left is, okay, we'll have we'll get 4 terms, right? 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8. We'll get 8 terms, right, when we expand this. Okay, let's expand this systematically. So first what we'll do is we'll take this cos term and multiply, open up this one. Okay, so cos term with 1, cos term with d by twice r into cos theta. Okay, cos multiplied with 1 will give us the same thing, plus d by twice r cos theta into cos of omega t minus r by c, right? So I have just opened this up here. Okay, next what we do is we take this and again open this up. So minus omega d by twice c cos theta sine of omega of so on into 1 minus this into this. Okay, so when we do that, you will get this. So first it is multiplied with 1, so we'll get minus omega d by twice c cos theta sine of omega t minus r by c. Then we'll multiply this again. So here you can see we have omega into d, and d here, another d here, so we'll get omega into d square. Then 2 into 2 will give us a 4 here, and we have a r here, and we have a c here, and then there is a cos here, and there is a cos theta here, so that will give us a cos square theta, and what is left is sine of omega t minus r by c. So we got these two terms. We do the same thing over here also. This cos term we multiply with this and this, we'll get this, because there's a minus sign here, minus cos of this into 1, we'll get the same thing. Then again we have minus and minus, we'll get a plus sign, d by twice r cos theta into cos of this. And lastly we have this one, multiply this with this and this, so we have minus plus plus, we'll get a minus sign, omega d by twice c into cos theta sine of omega t minus r by c. Then we have omega into d square, same as before, omega into d square, 4 into rc, then cos square theta sine of omega t minus r by c. Here we have a minus plus minus, so we'll get a plus sign. Okay, so this is what we have. Okay, of course outside we have q naught by 4 pi epsilon naught. So this is what we got over here. Now 4 of these terms will of course cancel out, because this cancels out this one and this cancels out this. So out of 8 terms, 4 terms gets cancelled, which leaves us with only 4 terms, and out of these 4 terms, 2 terms each, they are identical. This is identical to this, and this is identical to this. So as a result we'll get this into 2, so this 2 will vanish, so we'll have d by r cos theta cos omega t minus r by c. And here this also will multiply by 2, because this is identical with this, of course with a minus sign, so 2 will again vanish here, so omega d by c cos theta sine omega t minus r by c. So this is what we got. So I could now take this d is common here, so d also can come outside, and there's a cos theta which is common here, cos theta can also come outside. So we have q naught into d into cos theta, q naught into d into cos theta, okay, and 4 pi epsilon naught r, same as before, and I'll just bring this term ahead. Okay, so we'll get, because d, I have taken d and cos theta outside, so we have minus omega by c into sine of omega t minus r by c, plus d cos theta is outside, so we have 1 by r cos omega t minus r by c. Now you can of course see here q naught d is nothing but your p naught, right, that maximum dipole moment of the dipole that we have considered. So the scalar potential due to an oscillating electric dipole is basically this. So P naught cos theta by 4 pi epsilon naught minus omega by c sine omega t minus r by c plus 1 by r cos omega t minus r by c. So far so good. Now we have one more approximation to apply here. We have already applied approximations 1 and 2. So we need to apply approximation 3 here. According to this approximation 3, this one's, yeah. Of course, before that, okay, I'll come back to this later. So according to approximation 3, that is r is far greater than c by omega. Okay, that means we are talking about the radiation zone. R is extremely large, right? So again, you can see here the first term. Okay, so you see outside we have a 1 by r. This 1 by r, let me bring it inside. The first term is 1 by r. It varies as 1 by r. This 1 by r, if I bring it here, it will become 1 by r square, right? First term it varies as 1 by r, second term it varies as 1 by r square. Don't worry about the sine or cos, because this is just going to oscillate. R becomes large, sine and cos, it's just going to oscillate between plus or minus 1. Look at the what it is what is coming in the denominator. So we have first term, when you take this r here, it varies as 1 by r, second term varies as 1 by r square. And if you remember, in the third approximation, that is the radiation zone, we are going to neglect all the terms which varies as 1 by r square. So because the second term varies as 1 by r square, we are going to set this, we're going to say that in the radiation zone, the second term is going to become negligible. So as a result, only the first term remains. Okay, only the first term is going to remain. Now of course, in the stationary limit, okay, in the stationary limit, again, when omega tends to 0, this equation number 7, it becomes this, right? Because omega is 0 here, omega is 0 here, cos of 0 is 1, so we have 1 by r. This term becomes 0, so we have 1 by r, so 1 by r and 1 by r becomes 1 by r square. So this you're already familiar. This is the potential due to a stationary electric dipole. Okay, in electrostatics you would have probably come across this expression earlier. Okay, so now after applying all the three approximations, this is the scalar potential due to the oscillating electric dipole. Let's call this equation number 8. Now next challenge is to find out the vector potential. Now believe me or not, the finding the vector potential is much easier compared to finding the scalar potential. Okay, even though we have this misconception that working with scalars is much easier than working with vectors, but in this problem finding the scalar vector potential is much easier. Okay, this is how we do it. Okay, again we go back to the same physical dipole. We have a plus q and a minus q here. Now because we are making the charge flow in a harmonic manner, that means there is some current flowing through this filamentary wire, right? And because we have some current flowing through this filamentary wire, so we could talk about a current element. So I dz is the current element, right? And then this I dz, this is a separation vector which is r. So we can find out the vector potential, right? Vector potential is mu naught by 4 pi into current integration of the current element by the separation distance, right? This is, I've just used the definition of the vector potential. So I dz here in this case, I dz is equal to k cap into I dz, right? Dz vector is a vector. It's the it's a line segment. Okay, it's a line element. Okay, so I dz, this I write as k cap into I dz because the direction is going to be, the unit vector is always going to be along the z direction. So k cap into I dz. So the vector potential will be simply equal to mu naught by 4 pi. And of course we have to integrate from where? From this charge to this charge, that is from minus d by 2 to plus d by 2, because d is the separation between them. This is the origin, so this position is minus d by 2 and this position is plus d by 2. So k into I dz by r. Okay, so here the integral, of course we have to evaluate at retarded time, because that's what the idea of retarded potential is. The potential at a certain point at the present time is due to the charge or currents at a retarded time. Okay, so we have to evaluate this at the retarded time. So what is the current here? That is easy, because we already have assumed that the charge on any of these, it varies harmonically. Q of t is equal to q naught cos omega t. So current will be simply the rate of change of charge. So I is equal to dq by dt, which is going to give us q is equal to q naught sin omega t, q naught cos omega t. When you differentiate that, you will get minus omega q naught sin omega t. So that is this is going to be the current that we have here. So therefore in this equation, okay, in this equation all we need to do is just substitute here by taking this time as at a retarded time. So we have mu naught by 4 pi integration from minus d by 2 till plus d by 2. So we'll get minus omega into q naught sine of omega. This t, instead of this t, we'll write t minus r by c because of retarded time, divided by the separation distance, which is r. Let's call this equation number 10. Okay, so we got the expression. This is the integral that we'll have to evaluate. Okay, so now we can actually apply the two approximations. Okay, the two approximation 1 and approximation 2. We can apply it together and we can actually make this integral extremely easy to evaluate. Okay, so what do these two approximations tell us? Basically, these approximation 1 and 2, it tells us that the size of the dipole is extremely small. Okay, approximation 1 says that the size of the dipole is extremely small compared to the distance of the field point, and the second approximation says that the size of the dipole is extremely small compared to the wavelength. That means we are talking about an extremely small dipole, right? So if you are talking about an extremely small dipole, then because this dipole is extremely small, that means throughout, as you integrate over this entire length over which we are integrating, this capital R, okay, this length capital R will be approximately equal to this length small r, almost at all points, because like what is the distance, what is the difference between them, right? If you drop a perpendicular here, that will be the difference. Because this d is extremely small, that distance will be extremely negligible. So this r will be approximately equal to, capital R is approximately equal to small r, and as a result of that, because you can see here omega is constant, q naught is constant, right? The only thing that was changing here, because here t, of course, we are integrating with respect to position, so it is independent of t, right? Omega is constant, q naught is constant, right? It is independent of this integral, is independent of t. The only thing that it was depending on was r, right? Capital R, that is the separation distance. And because of approximations 1 and 2, this separation distance is approximately equal to the field position, the distance to the field position. Capital R is approximately equal to small r. So as a result, this entire integrand that we have, it becomes a constant. Because this integrand becomes a constant, we can safely take it outside the integral. Okay, so we can take this minus, of course there is a minus sign, mu naught omega q naught by 4 pi, mu naught omega q naught divided by 4 pi, and this r, capital R, is approximately equal to small r, so I can take it here. Then sine of omega t minus r by c, k cap also, it's a constant unit vector, I can take it out. So all that is left behind is integration of dz from minus d by 2 to plus d by 2, and this of course will be simply equal to small d. Okay, so this integral is small d, and that small d I multiply with q naught, that will give us p naught. So you'll get the vector potential to be approximately equal to minus mu naught p naught omega by 4 pi r sine of omega t minus r by c into k cap. So this is going to be the vector potential, which surprisingly in this case is much easier to obtain compared to the scalar potential. Now what about approximation 3? Approximation 3 will be not applicable here, because you can see here this term, it varies as 1 by r already, so we really don't need to apply the third approximation. So we will take a as it is here. So these are the potentials due to a oscillating perfect dipole. This is the scalar potential, and this is the vector potential. So once we know the scalar and the vector potentials, we can now find out the fields. The electric field is negative gradient of this minus the time rate of change of A, and the magnetic field is curl of A. So this will be a good time to stop this lecture here. So we will stop here. In the next part, I shall carry the discussion forward. We will use these potentials and evaluate the electric and the magnetic fields, and from there we will obtain the electric dipole radiation. So see you in the next lecture.